chicken, large coleslaw, large mashed potatoes and gravy, and 4 biscuits, all for just $9.99 plus tax. This offer ends soon.
Nobody's cooking like today's KFC. Nobody's cooking like today's KFC. Nobody.
Your attention, please. Metro Sales and Service has invited 6 of the biggest brand-name sewing machine manufacturers to bring you Iowa's largest ever sewing machine warehouse sale this weekend at the Iowa State Fairgrounds. See over 600 1991 Singer, Baby Lock, Viking, White, Elna, and new home sewing machines and sergers at factory direct prices with up to 25-year warranties. Example, a Singer heavy-duty zigzag machine is just $128. What a perfect Christmas gift. Iowa's largest ever sewing machine warehouse sale this Thursday through Sunday at the Iowa State Fairgrounds. Doors open at 10 a.m. each day.
The Magic of Christmas, starring the Oak Ridge Boys and Marie Osmond. Friday night, December 13th at Hilton Coliseum in Ames. KJJY-FM welcomes The Magic of Christmas with Marie Osmond, together on stage with the Oak Ridge Boys. Plus, a special guest appearance by Santa Claus. Reserve seats at the box office and all Ticketmaster locations or charge by phone. The Magic of Christmas, new Christmas tradition.
Channel 5 is uniquely qualified to provide weather you can count on. Only Channel 5 has 3 meteorologists with the training to accurately track storms. Only Channel 5 gives you weather updates on the hour, every hour. Only Channel 5 guarantees you a weather forecast in the first 5 minutes of every newscast we do. And only Channel 5 can keep you safe with the Guardian Lightning Tracking System. When you need to know the weather, turn to Channel 5. Weather you can count on.
Oh, by the way, you realize you didn't include anything in the time capsule from the infamous Major Burns.
I was thinking about putting in his scalpel, but I didn't want to include any deadly weapons.
Hey, guys, mind if we join you? I'm taking Sue Lee to the O Club to listen to a little music.
Sure, come on, you can sit with us.
Thank you.
Oh, look at this crowd. The place is packed. We'll never get a table.
Don't despair, gentlemen. I have a feeling a few tables will open up shortly.
Coming up on the next First Report, when is this bitterly cold weather going to leave us alone? All the 5cast details Friday morning at 6.
Channel 5's Pam Dale, keeping you in touch.
A stunning announcement from an All-American Idol.
First of all, let me say good after late afternoon. Because of the HIV virus that I have attained, I will have to retire from the Lakers.
Magic Johnson has been a role model for millions of American kids.
Seems like it's not true.
Just speechless, actually.
There was no man like Magic Johnson. There'll never be another one like him.
I've been a fan of Magic Johnson for many years, and I'm still not going to change my opinion.
Now Johnson's one of the 1 million Americans with the AIDS virus, and he's vowing to become a national spokesman for Safe Sex. Tonight we'll hear from some of Magic Johnson's fellow NBA players and from specialists on the AIDS virus.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
I was on a plane for much of today, returning to Washington from overseas. A fellow passenger who turned out to be the senior public health physician for the World Bank passed me some information on the spread of HIV infection throughout Asia. The disease in India, it turns out, is already of such epidemic proportions that if it continues to grow at its current pace, then by the year 2000, there will be more HIV-infected people in that country alone than throughout the entire world today. The doctor was wondering if there was any way that we could get Americans to focus on that. A couple of hours later, my wife and I were waiting for a taxi at Dulles Airport. One of the dispatchers approached me. Had I heard, he wanted to know, about Magic Johnson? And that, of course, is what millions of Americans are talking about tonight. The tragedy of one man whom we all know and like and admire is so much easier to grasp, hits home with far greater impact than the fate of hundreds of thousands of strangers. That is both the tragedy and the value of the Magic Johnson story. We begin with this report from Dave Marash.
Peter Martell, John Becker.
Of the more than 125,000 Americans who've died of AIDS, few were household names. And even as the numbers have multiplied, this week the Centers for Disease Control estimated between 1 and 1.5 million Americans are infected with the HIV virus. Our curiosity about people with AIDS has often been limited to one hostile question: how did they get it? Popular sympathy for people with AIDS has largely been reserved for those like Kimberly Bergalis, who was infected by her dentist, who can answer that one question without admitting to either drug abuse or homosexuality. The exceptions to that rule have been people who were already known to be exceptional before they got AIDS.
People, I think, are jolted and are surprised in a profound way when anyone who is famous, anyone who one would not associate with this disease, becomes diagnosed with AIDS. We saw that certainly in the case of Rock Hudson, which was a major turning point in this disease. For people who otherwise have had no personal contact with people with AIDS, now there's somebody that they know who has this disease. And it personalizes the epidemic in an important way. It brings the epidemic home.
Today in Los Angeles, the epidemic hit home in a new and indescribably jolting way.
Your back is against the wall. And I think that you just have to come out swinging, and I'm swinging.
Somehow the smile that always seemed as magical as his play on the basketball court never deserted Irvin Johnson today, as he announced at the age of 32 his premature retirement as one of the greatest athletes of our age.
I miss the battles and the wars, but most of all what I miss is the camaraderie that I had with the guys, being one of the fellas.
Perhaps more than any other superstar, Magic Johnson played like one of the guys. The one statistic in which he is pro basketball's all-time leader is for assists, leading to somebody else's basket. His most legendary game, the final game of the 1980 League Championship Series, he played out of position, filling in for the injured superstar center, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, as the Lakers defeated the heavily favored Philadelphia 76ers. In 12 years with Los Angeles, Johnson led the team to 9 championship finals. To the Lakers, his sudden loss costs them much more than just a star player.
Obviously, it's devastating for us. I think particularly emotionally for a lot of us. It's a very difficult thing.
Painful emotions swept across all the teams and arenas of the NBA tonight.
I think it's very important for us right now at this time to take a moment of silence, not in any other form other than to give our love and our support and our prayers for Irvin.
It's probably the saddest day I can remember in my lifetime. To hear something like, what I heard today, so it's going to take a big toll.
The demands of the pro game, his doctor said, make it impossible for Johnson to keep on playing, even though Magic currently has no symptoms of AIDS other than having tested positive for the HIV virus.
The rigors of playing professional basketball, to include significant exhaustion on a regular basis, alterations of normal dietary and activity habits may impair an individual's immune system. And since this disease also does that, the medical judgment is for Irvin to not continue that.
His illness will also cost Magic a long-cherished dream to play in the Olympics. In 1992, when the first contingent of NBA stars plays for their country, Magic Johnson will be where he has been since the beginning of the current NBA season, on the sidelines, cheering others. But Johnson says he'll stay in the spotlight, perhaps as the owner of an NBA franchise, another long-held dream, and certainly as a spokesman for those infected with HIV.
Because I want people and young people to realize that they can practice safe sex. And, you know, sometimes you're a little naive about it and you think it could never happen to you.
Jim Graham, whose Whitman Walker Clinic ministers to those with AIDS in the Washington area, says Johnson's message is urgently needed in minority communities, which have been shaken by a double epidemic of HIV infection and denial.
For the African American, for the Hispanic, this is still another problem on already burdened shoulders. And it's understandable that there would be a reaction of saying, gosh, we've got so much to deal with. You know, now having to deal with this in addition. I mean, when will this end? And, you know, I think that's been part of the denial.
Magic Johnson has long been a role model off as well as on the court. His recent wedding to longtime girlfriend Cookie Kelly was a major social event. His diversified business interests stretch from Los Angeles to Washington.
That's magic.
And his charity basketball exhibitions have raised millions of dollars for the United Negro College Fund and other causes. Ironically, his last games were played in Paris, exhibitions just before the NBA season began, in which his Lakers beat European teams. European fans found the same charm, grace, and generosity American fans have always associated with Irvin Johnson.
I'm sorry for Magic Johnson because he's such a role model and such a good human being.
That's devastating, absolutely devastating. I can't believe it. Magic's a completely inspirational figure to everybody from all walks of life.
You got a guy who has it all going on, you know, money, prestige, top of his class as far as basketball, and it happens to him. It can happen to anyone.
Very sad day for all Americans who have an attitude of achievement. Magic Johnson has symbolized that throughout his career. A lot of young kids, regardless of color, believe in him. And hopefully, though this is a negative experience, something positive can come from it in that all of us need to be very, very careful.
AIDS has no face, and we can just hope for a cure and wish the best of Magic and his family.
So many of the famous people who have died of AIDS refuse to admit what was killing them. And most of those who were candid were on the brink of death before they either realized their situation or publicly disclosed it. Thus, they added to the public perception that any mention of AIDS is nothing but a death sentence. Magic Johnson seems to have lots of life left and seems determined to use it to the fullest, notwithstanding a virus whose final implication is the only thing about it well understood.
I plan on going on, living for a long time, bugging you guys like I've always have. So you'll see me around. I plan on being with the Lakers in the league. Hopefully David will have me for a while. And going on with my life.
A three-pointer by Bill. The Notre Dame shot is an air ball taken by Magic. He throws to the other end. It went in! It went in!
Irvin Johnson, with his multiple talents and his magnetic personality, changed the game of basketball. Why not the rest of life? Not even AIDS will mar his magic. I'm Dave Marash for Nightline in Washington.
When we come back, we'll be joined by former pro basketball star Walt Frazier and by two men who know Magic Johnson well, Los Angeles sportscaster Jim Hill, who talked with him today, and the co-author of Magic Johnson's autobiography, Roy Johnson.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Ralston Purina.
If you buy dry dog food, there's something you should know. They're pretty much the same. Right, Jake? Most of them start with ground corn as the #1 ingredient, even a fancy brand like Science Diet. But Purina One Dog formula is different because it starts with chicken. Chicken, corn, wheat, and other wholesome ingredients provide high-quality nutrition and a naturally good taste dogs love. To me, Purina One is the only one.
Purina One, second to none.
I'm the youngest guy in the office. I've been there the shortest time, yet I'm the only one who got an Eagle Talon for a company car.
Wow, the boss must think a lot of you.
Dad, yeah.
That's my girl. She's extremely pleased with me for getting this newly designed Eagle Talon.
She's beautiful.
We think so.
This is Maaco's Ambassador Paint Service. Just $199. We professionally prepare your car. We chemically clean it, surface sand it, and give it a high-grade oven-baked enamel finish from over 7,000 colors. All backed in writing in over 400 centers coast to coast. Maaco's Ambassador Paint Service. The best value for your money. Just $199. If you want high-quality work for this kind of price, you better get Maaco.
Betty Broderick gave her life to her husband, but when he left her for a younger woman, she killed them both. Was she driven to murder? Her jailhouse interview.
2020.
Friday.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
That was another professional athlete whose career was cut short by disease, New York Yankee star Lou Gehrig, who finally died of a form of spinal paralysis that was later named after him. And perhaps not since Lou Gehrig made that famous small speech at Yankee Stadium back in 1939 has there been an instance of an athlete whose career was so brilliant and was nipped in the bud in such a tragic fashion. Joining us now from our Los Angeles bureau is Jim Hill, sportscaster for ABC television and a close personal friend of Magic Johnson. From New York, Roy Johnson of Sports Illustrated, who co-authored Magic Johnson's autobiography, and former pro basketball star Walt Frazier, now a radio commentator with the New York Knicks, for whom he played so brilliantly for many years. And Walt, if I may, I'd like to begin with you, and what I'd like each of the three of you to do in this first stage of the broadcast is to sort of gradually build a portrait of the man. And I know you don't know Magic personally that well, but I can't think of anyone better qualified to assess him as a basketball player. Would you start for us that way, Walt?
Well, there's no question about his talent, but I revered Magic Johnson for not only the way he played, but the way he lived. He was an altruist on the court and off the court, and his generosity is well known, what he's done for the United Negro College Fund and raising millions of dollars. And not only do other players, Magic was the first guy, he was the impetus for having a celebrity game where he raised money. Now Larry Bird has one, Isaiah Thomas, Dominique Wilkins. So he was the guy that was a catalyst for this type of generosity.
There's going to be a natural tendency, as we talk about Magic Johnson tonight, to lapse into the past tense. I don't think we ought to do that. I don't think he wants us to do that. The only thing that's in the past tense, I guess, is his professional basketball career. Sad enough. Jim Hill, let me come to you for a moment. You know him well. Tell me something about the man that the average viewer, the average basketball fan, would not know about him.
Well, Ted, one of the things that comes to mind when I think of Magic is the tremendous love that he has for his family. I remember when he broke the all-time assist record here in Los Angeles, the first person that he wanted to thank publicly was his father. He has tremendous family values. He loves his family. He goes back to Michigan whenever he can. As a matter of fact, he just brought his family a home back in the Michigan area. And when I talked to him the other night in the locker room, all he wanted to do was to talk about the home that he brought for his family and how much they were going to enjoy it and how much they would like being out in the open space. But he was a guy, more so than any other athlete that I know, he gave more to the community than any other athlete that I have ever covered or have ever known.
Now, Jim, you talked to him today, didn't you?
That's correct, Ted, yes.
How is he? I mean, we saw the same sort of gracious, almost casual about making what has to be the most momentous announcement of his life. How was he when you spoke to him? Insofar as you can, without violating any confidences, tell me about your conversation, would you?
Yeah, sure, Ted. He was more concerned about others and their feelings as opposed to his own feelings. His close personal friends and people in the family were around him, and there were a lot of tears that were being shed. But he kept saying, it's going to be all right. Don't worry about it. We're going to make it through this thing. We're going to fight it. I'm a battler, those kinds of things. And I really thought that with the emotion of the day that he would get all caught up and maybe break down at the press conference. But he didn't. He stood there and he faced us just like he always has, even in defeat throughout the course of his career. In games, he would always have a little smile on his face in defeat, which shows the love that he has for professional basketball. But it's an amazing thing, the way that he handled himself. It caught us all by surprise. It seemed like everyone had a tear in their eye except him.
Roy Johnson, you worked with him on crafting his autobiography. For a man who, since earliest childhood, has relied to a large extent on his athletic brilliance, who now is going to have to set that aside, how do you think he's going to move into this next phase of his life?
Well, one thing that I noticed today that didn't surprise me about the way he handled the press conference and the way he handled this announcement is that from the first moment I met him several years ago when he was a rookie, and in a sense I was a rookie too, covering the National Basketball Association, he's always been aware of who Earvin was and also who Magic was. He's always been aware of the responsibilities that Magic has and the opportunities to use his professional career as a means to an end and not an end into itself. He has always tried to prepare himself for this day. I remember one of our earliest interviews when he was still in his first or second year in the league. He ended up asking me questions before I could finish the interview. He was always inquisitive. He wanted to talk about business. He wanted to talk about the prospects and opportunities for NBA players. He wanted to talk about networking. So he's always been aware that this was a unique opportunity for him to take advantage of his status and also to live up to some responsibilities being Magic Johnson as opposed to Earvin. So I'm certain that he will be more than prepared to deal with this phase of his life because for the last 12 years, as long as I've known him, he's been preparing for this day.
All right, time now to make the transition from focusing just on Magic Johnson to the impact that the announcement today that he made will have on what, after all, involves a great many Americans, perhaps as many as 1.5 million. When we come back, we'll be joined by the chairman of the National AIDS Commission and by a prominent AIDS activist and author.
Ford Motor Company. Profiles in quality. Teamwork.
We work good as a team here on a job like this where all four of us can work together. That's what I said in '82. And today, teamwork is more important than ever.
Our paint job is only as good as a primer coat.
My primer coat's only as good as the body prep.
My body prep starts with a quality body panel. Together,
our goal is to build
the highest quality cars and trucks
in the world.
At Ford, quality is job one.
Campbell's heard your healthy requests.
Low cholesterol.
Less salt.
But lots of taste.
Here's our answer. New Campbell's Healthy Request ready-to-serve soups. All the great taste you want without some things you don't. New Campbell's Healthy Request. And healthy.
Introducing Glade Plug-ins Potpourri.
Plug it in the fresh in the air. Plug it in the fresh in everywhere.
Plug into freshness with Glade Plug-ins, now in Potpourri.
Plug it in, plug it in.
I was helping my mother move the other day when all of a sudden I heard her yell at me.
Hey, Gulligan man, look at that.
It was obvious that her new home had a water problem.
Bummer.
So, I checked it out.
Well, you're the expert. What now, Gulligan man?
Then I installed the right Culligan system, and it solved her problem.
Hey, Gulligan man, look at this!
Take an exclusive first look at Walt Disney's Magic at Work, creating a classic out of Beauty and the Beast.
2020. Friday, as the sun.
Don't miss the down-home good times as Joan, Charlie, and Spencer take to the road for the Great American Southland Bus Tour. Next week on Good Morning America.
Joining us from Ann Arbor, Michigan is Dr. June Osborn, chairman of the National Commission on AIDS and dean of the School of Public Health at the University of Michigan. And from our New York studio, Larry Kramer, who founded ACT UP, the coalition of AIDS activists. Mr. Kramer has the AIDS virus. And Mr. Kramer, we may as well begin on the point. Magic Johnson today made it very clear he does not have AIDS. He has tested HIV positive. Once again, because there still is so much confusion over it, what's the difference?
The difference between being, I guess, well and sick. He's going to die, and I'm going to die. And the 40 million people that the World Health Organization predicts are going to be HIV positive by the year 2000 are going to die. And I was very touched to see Magic Johnson today talk about how he is going to beat it and how they trotted out a doctor from UCLA to talk about all the wonderful drugs and treatments that are available for those who are HIV positive to keep us from getting AIDS. But I'm here to tell you that those drugs are useless and that Magic Johnson is not going to beat it. And until George Bush pays attention to AIDS, and until the Washington Post and the McNeil-Lehrer program and the Ted Koppel program start paying attention to AIDS, 40 million people are going to die. We are not talking epidemic, Mr. Koppel. We are talking plague. And people simply have not registered that point. And I don't care the difference between the virus and the sickness. Magic Johnson, in a very short time, is going to be a pariah. He is not going to be paid attention to and loved the way he is loved now. He is not going to be worshipped and adored for the noble deeds that he did. He is going to be a pariah because he is going to have the AIDS virus. So it doesn't make any difference what the difference between the AIDS virus and having AIDS is.
Dr. Osborn, is it, obviously, we're all going to die, so, you know, when Mr. Kramer says that if you test HIV...
Oh, that's very simplistic.
No, I'm not going to leave it simplistic if you'll just do me the courtesy of letting me finish my question to Dr. Kramer. My point is there are people who have lived for 5, 6, 8, 9, 10 years, longer.
3 months, 6 months, 8 months, 10 months.
Would you be good enough to let Dr. Kramer respond? I mean, to let Dr. Osborn respond to the question, Dr. Osborn?
June and I are buddies.
I think that the wonderful thing that Magic Johnson did today in his press conference was to say that he was going to live with HIV. It's been a hard thing to get people, including me for a while, to learn that the term AIDS victim is really a very damaging term. It's a damaging term to anybody in the long haul to be called a victim because it seems so powerless, so useless. And he did a wonderful and heroic thing by deciding very early in the course of his infection to say that he was going to live and do things that were important. We can all be hit by trucks next week, and if we could all do what he did today about the quality of life, it would be very exciting. For the million or so Americans who know or are going to know sometime fairly soon that they're infected, I think he sent a marvelous message that living with HIV is a challenge that is well worth embracing. I happen to be an NBA fan and a fan of Magic Johnson, but he was a much bigger giant today than he was yesterday for me.
All right, but somewhere between your non-answer to my question and Mr. Kramer's answer to my question, which went off in a direction that I wasn't quite expecting. See if you can focus for me on what the legitimate expectation for anyone who tests positive, HIV positive, how long can they expect to live? Must they all expect, and again, if you'd be good enough, Mr. Kramer, to let Dr. Osborn respond to that.
Well, there's a study in San Francisco that you can quote that the patients who can live. There are 14% of people who were tested in 1976 for the hepatitis B virus now are still alive, even though they are HIV positive.
And Dr. Osborn, what is the expectation for someone who tests positive?
Well, as Larry is saying, you can't pinpoint it for an individual, and there are ways that people can live a healthier life that lets that time get longer. The average interval between acquiring the virus, called human immunodeficiency virus, and the onset of serious illness probably is as long as 10 or 11 years. And from some of the things that he said today, it sounds as if he's fairly early, that he was tested negative not too long ago. So I would think we can expect him to have a number of years of quite healthy life, and he's obviously made it clear that he's going to use that. In the longer haul, so as far as we know, most people who are infected, the large majority, will ultimately become ill, but that's where the research initiatives need to be focused on extending that interval so that it begins to approximate a normal lifespan. And I know why Larry's discouraged. He's been at the forefront of efforts to try and accelerate that research to expand that lifespan. But I think that for somebody who is entering the infection newly, there is the expectation of many years of good health and the need to learn how to protect one's loved ones in terms of sexual behavior, injecting behavior, no need to be frightened in any other way, and the opportunity to love and be productive.
All right,
so
we're
it's a very important thing to know about.
We're going to have to take a break. When we come back, what I'd like to do is to bring all of our guests together so that we can see whether the extreme pessimism that Mr. Kramer expressed a moment ago about how Magic Johnson will be treated a few years from now if and when he has the full-blown disease. Well, I'd like to see how our other guests respond to that. We'll continue our discussion in a moment.
I think they look at Magic as the man who had the many smiles and will always smile. The guy who brought the high fives, the low fives, and the side fives to basketball and generated some excitement in the game.
Nighttime, one of the worst times for pain. Pain that's hard to face alone. That's why you need new Ultra Strength Bengay, with more pain relievers than we've ever had before. For muscle pain, it's hard to ignore. Minor arthritis pain, back pain, pain that seems worse at night. New Ultra Strength Bengay, with more pain relievers than ever. Deep, penetrating warmth for fast, long-lasting relief. You can say goodnight to your pain with new Ultra Strength Bengay.
So you want a car with all the good stuff. Power steering, power brakes, automatic transmission, AM/FM stereo, air conditioning, a terrific warranty, even an airbag. Well, over $10,000, you'll have lots of choices. But under $10,000, you'll find only one Dodge Shadow America.
Now, drive for the gold with up to $1,500 cash back on select Dodge cars.
Today, Tektret Shoe Corporation announced a major retail expansion in 25 U.S. cities.
When I see a company that looks like a good investment, I check it out myself.
We make it easier to follow your own lead.
At Charles Schwab, I can get quotes, financial news, and when I make a trade, commission savings.
Always there to give you just the help you need.
Help yourself at Schwab today.
I just can't stand this anymore. How am I supposed to fall asleep with this pain? I could take one of those nighttime pain relievers with a sleep ingredient. But all I really need is Advil to help stop the pain that's keeping me up. Just Advil. That's all I want. Without the extra sleep ingredient, I don't want. Advil is so effective, it relieves the pain, so I can get to sleep.
Discover the relief of Advil at bedtime. Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
I'm former Governor Harold Hughes. If you're a man or there's a man in your life who has a drinking or other drug problem, Men's Recovery Center has developed 3 programs, one of which should meet the special needs of any man seeking recovery. Daytime outpatient, you're at home at night with your family. Evening outpatient, you can work days or go to school and still get well. Inpatient, for those requiring more intensive care. We can help. Please call us.
Walt Frazier, it was only by implication, but Magic Johnson seemed to be implying today that he became HIV-infected positive because he didn't practice safe sex. So however he got it, the implication was that he got it through sex. Talk to me for a moment about the enormous pressures on a young man who is moving from city to city to city, who is making perhaps more money than he's ever known before in his life. I'm not talking now about Magic Johnson, I'm just talking about professional athletes and the sexuality.
Well, there's tremendous pressure, even if you're not Magic Johnson, if you happen to be on a professional team today. But also discrepancy should be there as well, because there are always the hanger-oners around the locker rooms and what have you. And it was difficult for me and the players that played before me. So, but we were not under the pressure, I think, of today's players, where there's so much mania about the athletes, and especially a guy like Magic Johnson. So it's tough, but it's just something that's unfortunate that has to happen to Magic, and it's really pathetic.
Look, there was an extraordinary coincidence, because only a few days ago, as I'm sure you all know, Will Chamberlain was flogging his book, and he was on, I believe it was the Today Show with Brian Gumbel. And again, let's just play a little segment, because I think it is relevant to the discussion that we're having here tonight. Let's take a look at that piece of tape.
Page 251, quote, "I'm one of those lucky ones, so don't be shocked to hear that if I had to count my sexual encounters, I would be closing in on 20,000 women."
See, you take it out of context like that, it sounds like bragging. But there's no conquest in it for me. What I was trying to point out here as sexual encounters occupied a great deal of my life, as basketball did.
Now, Wilt Chamberlain obviously belonged to another generation of basketball player, and I say that because there was another generation where people didn't think about casual sex quite the way they do today. Walt Frazier, is there anything to be learned from that, and anything to be learned now that should be passed on, not only to the young men who are playing basketball around the country as professionals, but to the jocks in high school, in college? Anything you want to pass on that you think is relevant here?
Sure, there's no question that this is a different era. AIDS was not prevalent in that time. I think I can equate it like when you talk to basketball players today, they say, hey man, that was then and this was now. What Wilt Chamberlain is talking about, that was then. You didn't really think of safe sex because you couldn't die, get a disease that would actually kill you from having sex. So there was not a problem. But this is now, and you can. So I'm sure this will have a dramatic impact on athletes or people in general, not only in this country, but throughout the world, because Magic Johnson is an international star, and especially our youths. I think, as Magic said, he will be a spokesman for this insidious disease, and there's no question that he could help the people. It's tantamount to what happened to Lynn Byers when he had a drug overdose, and many people focused on the evils of taking drugs at that time. So I think now that this happening to Magic will enlighten people, and I disagree with the man to say he will become a pariah. I think Magic Johnson will be larger now on a different court, and he will have such an impact on people because this was a man that had passion. He always gave it, and I think now that he needs it, he will receive it back.
Roy Johnson, talk to me about the kind of impact, and pick up on what Larry Kramer said before. It happens to most people, all but the very dearest and closest friends.
I think what a lot of people went through today was feeling as if this was a family member receiving the news. I got that sense from a lot of people that I spoke with and watching telecasts of just reactions of people. And if Dr. Kramer can take anything positive out of this, I mean, I understand his frustration from many, many years of running into walls and barriers toward AIDS awareness. I would submit to him to look towards the child who was presented early in this show, who said that despite this, it will not change the way that he views Earvin Magic Johnson. And that is where our hope lies, in that this young generation, a generation that has not been tainted, as it were, by the implications of the disease, will take from this a new awareness and a strength that will allow them to understand what's out there and understand the things that they have to deal with. As for other people, I think that this is our wake-up call. This is the time for all of us to now understand that this is not someone else's disease. This is our disease.
All right, we've got to take another break. Larry Kramer will come back to you right after the break. We'll continue our discussion in a moment.
No, you go ahead, honey. My throat really hurts.
When your throat is sore and it's feeling raw, Sucrets wraps your throat in soothing relief.
Much better.
Only Sucrets has diclonine for long-lasting relief. Sucrets wraps your throat in soothing relief.
It's a beautiful morning.
Was it the desk clerk's smile?
Gonna meet my new granddaughter today.
The days in discounts for seniors.
I hope she looks a lot like me.
Maybe the wake-up call.
Not him.
One thing's for sure.
It's a beautiful morning.
Days in. Isn't it time you wake up to us?
I think I'll go outside and just smile.
You must sing tonight.
I cannot sing. He's coughing a sore throat.
Take Nice. Sugar-free Nice showers your throat with medicine for icy cool relief.
Ah, cool. Feels better.
Put your throat on ice with Nice.
Kids love my ice cream. Had to take their word for it. Meet the ice cream man who couldn't eat ice cream. So you want 2 scoops or 1 scoop? Funny, huh? Same trouble digesting milk, cheese. Made my stomach nuts. Anyway, that was before dairies. I just chew some tablets and eat what I want. That's opened up a whole new world for me. How's it taste? Good.
Assault, rape, sexual harassment in the workplace. Frightening images for any woman. Tragically, though, statistics show that most women will be forced to deal with one or more of these issues during their lifetime. Channel 5 News is examining these growing problems in a series of special reports called Crimes Against Women. Each day will help you learn more about these issues, plus lessen your chances of becoming the next victim. Don't miss Crimes Against Women, exclusive daily reports on Channel 5 News.
For more than 2 years now, Iowans have been starting their day by watching the Channel 5 First Report at 6 a.m.
Because you've been making time for us each morning, we thought we'd like to do something for you in return, like picking up breakfast.
Thanks to the folks at Country Kitchen, we'll be able to give away a breakfast for two every morning on the Channel 5 First Report.
So keep watching weekday mornings at 6. You can find out how you can join the Breakfast Club from Country Kitchen and Channel 5.
Larry Kramer, when a friend, a family member, becomes infected with HIV, can you hear me, or are you having trouble with your earpiece?
Go ahead.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay. When a friend becomes infected, it does make a difference. You can't ignore a friend or a family member quite as easily as you can ignore all those strangers out there. In that sense, given what you've heard people say about Magic Johnson tonight, do you think that his infection with the virus is going to make a difference?
Let me just say two things quickly. I pray that it does. I pray that everyone responds. I was in a Foot Locker store this afternoon when I heard this news about Magic Johnson. The staff was entirely people of color. Magic Johnson ceased to exist in their lives from the comments that they made. I hope that it is not the same in the rest of the world. In terms of Magic, I want to make this one plea to him. He said he was going to go out there and talk to the kids about safe sex. It's a waste of time. There is no amount of education that is going to end this plague. The only thing that's going to end this plague is a cure. And research simply is not being done in this country because George Bush and Congress don't care. The two most promising treatments are available only in France. They are forbidden in this country. Dr. Zaguri's vaccine, which is light years ahead of anything that's available here in Paris, and Dr. Charmant's thymosin extract in Marseille. But because of an idiot in Congress called Representative Dingell, we cannot get any research done at the National Institutes of Health. I beg Magic Johnson to be the spokesperson for the cure, to make George Bush say, we must put someone in charge of the research, not the education. There is no one in charge.